I'm Lisa Andrews and owner of Sound Bites Nutrition, and I'm here on behalf of the cancer support community to show you how to make a really easy meal from pantry to plate. And I'm not going to show you my pantry right now because I could be accused of hoarding a little bit on the canned goods, but I digress. So what I'm going to make today is a Thai peanut noodle pasta with chicken. It's also got some sauteed bell peppers in it. It has garlic. I'm going to use natural peanut butter. And the difference with natural peanut butter versus commercial peanut butter, just so you know, the word natural is more or less a marketing term, but what I consider natural peanut butter is the type where the oil comes up to the top. And there's only 2 ingredients in here. So basically we've got nuts and salt. The recipe also has some low sodium soy sauce. And soy sauce is still going to be a little bit high in sodium, even though it's lower sodium. So, you know, use it sparingly in other dishes if you do use it. The other ingredients are minced, or I call this ginger because it's ginger in a jar, but ginger paste, or you could use fresh ginger if you have it. And I already mentioned the bell peppers, which will provide some vitamin C. So the first thing I'm going to do before I do anything is put on some gloves. And this helps to protect your loved ones at home and protect you as well from any kind of foodborne illness. And just from a disease prevention standpoint, you want to wear gloves, especially, you know, during this COVID-19 pandemic, which is really pretty crazy. So I'm going to wear some gloves. First thing I'm going to do after that is I am going to line a 9x13 pan with parchment paper. If you've never used parchment paper before, which I have, although I'm having a little trouble ripping it, it just makes your cleanup a lot easier. So I'm just going to put down a piece of parchment paper, and then I've got a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast. And a lot of people think that you need to rinse the chicken before you use it. You really don't want to do that, because if you take the chicken out and you rinse it in your sink, you basically spread a lot of bacteria around in your sink, and you don't want to do that. So just cooking the chicken will kill off the bacteria, so you don't want to rinse it before you cook it. I'm going to take the chicken breast and I'm just going to season it with a little bit of seasoned salt, and then I'm going to bake it for about 30 minutes on 400. So we'll go ahead and do that part first. Got some chicken here. And as I mentioned before, parchment paper is really heat tolerant. So, you know, it's great for baking. We use it quite a bit making homemade pizza, or if we make any kind of roasted potatoes or roasted vegetables or something, or chicken. It just makes your cleanup much, much easier. So, and now I've got raw chicken on my hands, so I'm going to take these off. And we're just going to go ahead and throw that out. And thankfully I've got plenty of gloves. So I am just going to season the chicken with a little bit of seasoned salt on both sides. So I'll grab a little fork here. I will say the one advantage of being in my own kitchen versus the Cancer Support Center, I miss the audience, but I know exactly where everything is in this kitchen. The other thing, though, I miss about the kitchen at the Cancer Support Center is I miss my helpers. So I want to give a little shout out to Ginny and Sandy and Sam if you're watching. Hopefully we'll be back within the next, 6 months to a year or so. But I miss you guys. You guys have always been great help in the kitchen. All right, so I've got a little bit of seasoned salt on my chicken, and I'm just going to place this in the oven to bake for about a half hour. Looks like my husband was baking some bread and I forgot to move that rack up. Okay, but that's all right. Okay, so while my chicken is baking, what I'm going to do next is boil some water for some whole wheat spaghetti. And the difference between whole wheat spaghetti and regular spaghetti is really the fiber content. So the carbohydrates, the calories, all the other B vitamins and everything are exactly the same in white spaghetti, but the big difference with whole grain or whole wheat spaghetti is the amount of fiber that's in here. So in white spaghetti you have about 2 grams of fiber. In whole wheat spaghetti you have 6 grams of fiber, which is pretty significant. So I'm going to wait and let that boil. And in the meantime, I'm gonna get my peppers prepped. So I'm gonna put on some gloves. And while that's boiling, I'm gonna cut up these peppers into strips. And the benefit of adding some vegetables to your pasta dish, or really any other dish, is that you're adding more nutrition and more texture and more color. So I'm a big fan of bell peppers because they add a lot of vitamin C, they add fiber, they add a lot of antioxidants and other phytonutrients, which are great for cancer prevention. And they also add a lot of color and again, flavor to your dish. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these up. And typically I like to cut the top off first. Everybody cuts their peppers a little bit differently, but this is how we do it in the Andrews home. I also use the butt of the pepper because I don't like any food waste. So I'm just going to trim these down into some strips to be used in our Thai peanut noodle dish. You can also add other vegetables. So if you've got some zucchini, although it's a little bit early to have zucchini in your garden, but if you've got some zucchini or you have maybe some broccoli or something like that, you want to add that into your dish, feel free. The more vegetables, the better. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut up this second pepper. Another thing I wanted to mention about peppers is that red and yellow and orange peppers are actually a little bit more nutritious than green peppers because they've been sitting on the vine longer, so they actually have a little bit longer to develop some nutrition. So I'm just going to cut these into strips. Watch my fingers. And once they're all cut, I'm going to saute these in a little bit of canola oil. And if you don't have canola oil at home, you can use, I would suggest probably just some corn oil, just because you want something neutral. I think, olive oil is great for Mediterranean dishes or maybe like a salad, like a salad dressing or something, but I typically use something a little bit more neutral like canola or corn oil. And both of those are heart healthy, so you want to go ahead and use those. And again, I use the whole pepper, so I'm going to go ahead and slice this up as well. And then we're going to take it over to the stove and start to saute the peppers. Okay, so next step in our recipe is I'm going to saute these peppers. It'll probably take about 5 minutes, so I'm just going to use my canola oil again. And we'll just set that aside. Wait for that to heat up. And again, if you don't have canola oil, corn oil would be a great substitute. I wouldn't use anything with a low smoke point like a sesame seed oil or sesame oil or something because it changes the flavor of the peppers and it just doesn't work well with heat. So we're going to go ahead and saute these. I'll put these in here. Oh, I might have lost one. Oh, got one over here. So here's another little tip with the type of pan that I'm using. We have quite a bit of cast iron skillets in our house, and the fact that I'm actually using a food that's high in vitamin C with the skillet, I'm sort of leaching out a little bit of the iron from the skillet, so you get a little nutritional benefit depending on what type of skillet that you use at home. And I like cast iron because it's pretty solid, it cleans up really easily. I just feel like a pioneer when I'm using it. But again, it leaches some of that iron out from the vitamin C that you're using. So if you're cooking either peppers or spinach or broccoli in here or tomatoes, then you're going to get some added iron from the skillet, which is great. Actually good for your immune system. So I'm going to go ahead and cook these peppers probably between like 5 to 7 minutes. Once they start to soften up a little bit is when I'll turn them off. And they're looking pretty good right now. What I'll probably do is just turn them down a little bit so that they don't burn. And then I'm just going to put a little lid on this and give them a little bit of time to cook on their own. And then we'll just kind of come back to them here and there. So my water is almost boiled. And again, I mentioned using a whole wheat spaghetti instead of a white spaghetti with this recipe. And we're going to use about half the box, which would be about half a pound of pasta. But, you know, if you have a larger crowd, you can certainly make more of this if you wanted to. But I'm going to use roughly half the box. Your spaghetti's going to take probably about 10 minutes to cook. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, and we'll do a little timer. And we'll just stir that up a tiny bit. Now, if you wanted to make the recipe gluten-free, you can. You could use either a brown rice pasta or a quinoa-based pasta. There is some gluten in the soy sauce, and so a good substitute would be liquid aminos, and that way you wouldn't get any gluten in your recipe if you did need to make it gluten-free. We've got about 15 more minutes on the chicken. And our peppers are looking pretty good. So one thing I didn't mention is that, you know, if you're somebody that doesn't want to use raw chicken, so if you don't want to use raw chicken, or maybe you get to the store and they're out of raw chicken because, you know, right now a lot of things are you know, out of stock. I mean, it's a good thing I'm not cooking with toilet paper, right? But one thing that you can use is canned chicken, and this is actually already cooked. It needs to be heated up though, of course, but this is a great substitute for you know, chicken breast if you don't want to deal with chicken breast, you don't want to deal with raw chicken, or you just need something really simple to use. But this is great to use for things like chili or soup, or you could put it in this pasta, and it just kind of flakes up very similar to tuna. But again, it's just a canned chicken product, and it's roughly, it's, you know, 12 ounces, so, you know, a little less than a pound of chicken, which is great, which is almost the equivalent of what you're going to get from the cooked chicken breast once it's done. My peppers are looking pretty good. We're almost ready to make the peanut sauce. But I think rather than doing that, I'm going to start on my second recipe so the salad can sit for a little bit. And so we're going to take a short break real quick, and I'm going to get ready to prep the salad. Thanks. Okay, so while the chicken and the pasta are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and start on my salad. And what I've got here is some fresh kale. You can use baby kale. If you're not a big kale fan, because I know not everybody is, you could certainly use spinach as a substitute. And what I'm doing right now is just getting the kale kind of prepped. I'm going to spin it, and then what I'm going to do is put it in this Ziploc bag and massage it a little bit. And what that does is it helps to wilt the kale so that the texture is not so rough. And you'll be able to tell the difference between, you know, kale that's sort of, you know, wilted a little bit, or kind of what we call surrendered, because it's going to get shiny as I sort of massage it down to a better texture. Now, normally when you're cooking kale, like if you're making a kale soup, or if you're going to make some kale chips, you can also use the stems. They're a little rough, but you'll want to just, you know, trim off the edges. But I don't like to waste anything, so I'm going to actually keep these stems and probably put them in some soup. I'm just going to chop them up just like I would celery, because they do add some texture and some fiber to your dish. I'll talk a little bit about the health benefits of kale. I mean, they call this a nutritional powerhouse, and for a good reason. So kale is a great source of vitamin K, which you need for blood clotting. You also need vitamin K for bone health. This is a really rich source of folic acid, which is great for heart health. It's also high in potassium. It's also high in lutein and beta carotene, and those protect your eyes. So lots of really great nutrients. Oh, and also vitamin C that's in kale, which again is great for your immune system. It's also really good for absorbing iron, and it's good for making collagen. It's good for wound healing. So we got lots and lots of health benefits of vitamin C. So once I've got most of the kale on here, I'm just going to take this and spin it out, and then I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag and just kind of massage it a little bit so that it softens up the kale, and you'll see it makes a much better salad. And kale is one of these types of salads that you can kind of cook ahead of time, or make the salad ahead of time, because again it's a much heartier green than other greens. I'm just going to rinse it real quick. And if you don't have a salad spinner, I highly recommend one, because it just really makes, what it does for your salad is it just kind of dries it out and gets rid of all, water and pesticides that are on the greens and the dirt. This kind of uses a little centrifugal force. And this is kind of where you can get your kids involved in the kitchen. If you've got, some young kids or some grandkids, they're looking for something to do and you want to get them involved in the kitchen, this is something that they would probably enjoy doing, whether it's, helping to spin out the salad or wash it. Or the other thing that they can do is to take out a little stress, because everybody's under a little stress and we're all a little bit more bored than usual, is you want to take your salad or your kale and you just want to massage it. So I'm trying to get this Ziploc zipped here. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just kind of massage the kale. If you want to add, a little bit of salad oil or something to this, you can, because it's going to be dressed anyway. But as the salad, or as your kale starts to wilt a little bit, it'll turn kind of shiny. And I think our pasta's done. You want to turn it off? Okay, so good news, my noodles are done. So I'm going to go ahead and drain these out. I'm going to leave a little tiny bit of water in here just so they don't get too sticky. The other thing that you can do, especially since we're going to add, a fat-based sauce to this, is you can add a little bit of oil so that, your noodles don't get too sticky. So I would add just a little bit of canola oil, or honestly, if you wanted to throw in a tiny bit of peanut butter, you could, because that's got some fat in it as well, and your sauce for this dish is going to be made out of peanut butter anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to rest, and then I'm going to go back to my salad. Okay. So I just rinsed the berries that I'm going to put in the salad. Some of the health benefits of strawberries are actually really good for your heart. They're good for helping to prevent cancer, just like any other blueberries or any other any blackberries, blueberries, raspberries. They all have different antioxidants that help to prevent cancer. And I've rinsed those, but I need to just cut them up for the salad. So, if you'll notice, my kale has gotten a little bit shinier. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to my salad bowl. And you'll want to rip it up into, kind of smaller pieces so that it's edible. Nobody wants to put a giant piece of kale or salad, whatever, in their mouth, but good to just get it kind of nice and shredded up. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside over here. I'll get my recipe out so I can make the dressing. Then I'm just going to cut up my strawberries. And I use this for the pepper, so I just want to rinse this real quick so this doesn't taste like pepper juice. probably a good idea to have multiple knives around. Actually, I'm just gonna use my little paring knife here for these. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just cut my strawberries in half. And one thing I should mention about any type of berries that you have, you want to keep them dry before you use them. So, you know, if you buy strawberries or blackberries or raspberries or anything, don't rinse them first and put them back in the refrigerator. Just keep them dry and make sure they're in the refrigerator, and then just, you know, wash them and cut them up before you're going to use them, unless you're going to cook them in a sauce or something like that. Another thing you could do to keep them a little bit longer is to kind of layer them on like a cookie sheet, or, you know, smaller type of like flat sheet with some paper towels. And again, don't wash them first, but just layer them like that, and keep them in the refrigerator before you use them. They'll keep a little bit longer. Now, if you don't have strawberries, you want to use something else in the salad, you could certainly use apples because those are still in season, or any kind of oranges would be good as well, just to change up the flavor of your salad a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and add, this is roughly about 2 cups of salad, or, you know, 1 container or 1 pound that you would buy at the store. It's a little early for strawberry season, but I figured they were available and I would just go ahead and use them. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these up. And our chicken is going to be done soon. And once the chicken is done, I need to let it rest for a little bit before I cut it so it's not so hot. But I'm just going to cut it into some chunks and then set it aside so that it is ready to be added to our peanut sauce once I make that. And that's actually a really, really quick sauce to make. And you can also use it for grilled chicken or grilled pork or something like that, sort of like a saute type of sauce, like a chicken saute. And I'll show you how easy that is to make. Now, the other thing that goes in this salad is a little bit of red onion. And if you guys have seen me do a demo before, you'll know that I really hate to cut onions. So if I start to cry, it's because of the onions. So don't take it personally. It's just that I hate cutting onions because they make my eyes water, and normally my husband does this for me. Okay, our chicken is done. Okay, my favorite part, I'm going to cut the onion. Now you just want the onion in rings, so I'm going to use the bigger part. And the way to hold an onion is just make your hands into like a C and just hold it like this. Let me get rid of some of the peel real quick. And I'm literally only going to use, you know, maybe 1 or 2 cuts of onion, because to me, onions are kind of a flavor bully. You've probably heard me say that before, so I don't want a whole lot of onion in there, but it does give the salad a nice taste. It gives it a little bit of bite. I can already feel it starting to affect my eyes. I'm dying here. All right, so I'm just going to cut a tiny bit of this onion to add to the salad. And again, you just want a little bit cut into just some rings, well, or some semi-rings. So we're just going to add those in. And I'm going to take a break because my eyes are already starting to water. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make a really, really easy dressing, and you can use this on really any type of salad. So first things that I need are my oil, and I only need a couple tablespoons of oil. And then I'm going to use a balsamic vinegar, and for whatever reason balsamic vinegar goes really well with strawberries. But if you didn't have balsamic vinegar on hand, you could use red wine vinegar, or apple cider vinegar would also work well. But I really like balsamic vinegar with strawberries. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the balsamic vinegar with the oil. And then I need a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. I'm going to shake it real good, otherwise you just get mustard juice and no mustard, and nobody likes that. So got our teaspoon of mustard, and then a teaspoon of honey to make it a little bit sweeter. So I'm just going to whisk that up. I'm still recovering from that onion. The onion is not my friend. Okay. Now if you wanted to change the flavor up a little bit of this, you could use maple syrup if you didn't have honey, or if you wanted to change the flavor a little bit. Maple syrup would certainly change it. Or if you had a different type of mustard, like a spicy mustard, you know, that would change the flavor. Or horseradish mustard might go well. You never know. Fun to experiment. So that doesn't look like a lot of dressing, but you don't really need a lot of dressing. So you really want to taste the salad. You don't want to just taste dressing. We're going to go ahead and whisk that up. And I'm going to drizzle that over it. And then the last two things I'm going to add before I toss it are a little bit of feta cheese. So I need about 1/4 cup. And I have another measuring cup here. Normally I would use a dry measuring cup, but that's okay. This one's available, so we're going to go with it. And with something like cheese, you don't necessarily have to measure it per se, unless you're kind of counting calories. But you know, 1/4 cup is, you know, roughly a tablespoon or 2 of your feta cheese. You could also use blue cheese if you don't like feta, or if you don't have feta on hand. And because feta is a pretty strong cheese, you really don't need very much of it. So, got our feta cheese in there. And then the last thing I'm going to add to the salad are some chopped walnuts. And walnuts are actually a source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are heart healthy. And they're not open, so I need to open them. How about some scissors? Okay. So these are actually walnut pieces, and they're already a little bit chopped up. And I need about 2/3 of a cup. And again, normally I would use a dry measuring cup, but any port in the storm here. So I've got 2/3 of a cup of walnuts. If you don't like walnuts, you could use pecans. Those would go really well in here, or almond slivers would also go well. I've got my salad made. And I'm just going to toss this and set it aside. So I'm just going to go ahead and toss this all together. If you're watching at home, you may need a bigger salad bowl, but you probably see that there's not a whole lot of dressing on this. But again, you really don't need a whole lot of dressing. The more dressing that you have, the more soggy your salad is, and it just kind of drowns out the flavor of the other vegetables and fruit that are in the salad. And again, if you wanted to use different fruit or different lettuce, if you wanted to use microgreens, or you want to use spinach, or you want to use baby kale, totally fine. Most dressings are typically, 1-to-1 ratio of oil and vinegar. And to give it a little bit more body, just throw in a tiny bit of Dijon mustard and some honey. So our salad is looking pretty good. I want to make sure that I've tossed the bottom and get all those nuts and everything else in there. And that's our salad. And then what we're going to make next is the peanut sauce for the pasta. Okay, so now I'm going to make the peanut sauce for this dish. And it's really simple. Again, I'm using natural peanut butter, low sodium soy sauce, ginger paste. Oh, garlic. I almost forgot the garlic. My God. All right, I gotta cut up some garlic. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is kind of get rid of the skin on my garlic. A good push. Not very strong. Both hands. Maybe I should just use the other garlic. Okay, there we go. Yay! All right, so I've gotten the skin off the garlic. And we're just going to mince this into small pieces here. And I want to let the garlic sit for a little bit, because aerating the garlic, so when the garlic is exposed to oxygen, it lets out a chemical called allicin, that has some antioxidant properties. So I just want to chop this as best I can. I'm doing a very good job. Now, if you don't have any fresh garlic at home or the store is out of it, you could use garlic powder as a substitute. I would probably use about a half teaspoon of garlic powder because it's pretty concentrated. Or the other thing that you could use is jarred minced garlic, which, as you know, I like to call jarlic. So this is some pretty strong garlic. It's looking good. And we're not going to add it right away in the sauce, but I do want it to cook, obviously. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just put my garlic in a little bowl and let it sit by itself while I start the peanut butter sauce. So let's go ahead and get that in there. And then we're going to go over to the stove and make peanut butter sauce. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start my peanut butter sauce. And what you're going to include here is our natural peanut butter, and I need about 3/4 of a cup. And this stuff is actually pretty pourable because it's pretty thin. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour it out into the pan. So I need about 3/4 of a cup. Now, if you don't have natural peanut butter, that's totally fine. You can use regular peanut butter. If you wanted to have a little bit more texture, you can use crunchy peanut butter. So we've got our peanut butter in there. And then I'm going to add about a half a cup of water. All right, we've got that. We've got our peanut butter set. Go ahead and turn on my heat here. So this is about 3/4 of a cup of water, but I'm not going to use all of it. I'm just going to use, roughly about half of it. And then I'm going to add my seasonings to this. So I need 1½ teaspoons of ginger paste. I'm just going to use this as a half a teaspoon, so I'm just going to use 3 of these. About 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, but I don't think this is open yet. So we'll get our soy sauce in there. And again, this is a lower sodium soy sauce. If you want to make it gluten-free, again, you could use liquid aminos. If you wanted to make this, pardon me, nut-free, you could actually use sunflower butter. That would be a good substitute. So we've got about 3 tablespoons of our low sodium soy sauce. And then I'm going to add the garlic in here so that cooks down. I'm just going to grab a wooden spoon real quick. And then the other thing that I'm going to add in here is the secret sauce. So I love to use chili garlic sauce in this type of dish just because it gives a little bit more bite. But if you have kids and they don't like spicy food, you can leave this out. Another good substitute would be either cayenne pepper or like chopped red pepper flakes would be great too. So we only need about a teaspoon of this. And if you like it more spicy, you can certainly add more. And I'm going to let this cook for about 5 minutes, but it starts to make sort of just a nice thick sauce. So as this heats up, it starts to thicken, and so I'm going to add a little bit more water to it so it's not too thick and I'm able to mix everything in. But I'm not going to dump in all the water all at once because then it's, you can't unthin it. I guess what you could do if it gets too thin is just add some more peanut butter to it. But I end up using probably about a half cup to 3/4 of a cup of water for this. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit longer so that the garlic is done. And then I'm going to turn this down. We're almost done. So the next thing I'm going to do is just cut up the chicken into pieces. And then basically what we do is combine the chicken and the noodles and the sauteed peppers and the sauce. And then I'm going to add some chopped cilantro to it and serve it. And we're done. Okay, so our chicken is done. And I'm just going to cut it into some pieces to add it into our noodles. Again, with this chicken, I just seasoned it with a little bit of seasoned salt. Again, cooked it on parchment paper, which makes your cleanup much easier. And if you don't have chicken, or maybe you have leftover turkey, maybe you're making this at Thanksgiving time, you could use turkey. If you're vegetarian, you could use tofu. I would use firm tofu because that would be, you just have to saute it first before you used it and cook it in some way. But that would be, that would be a good vegetarian substitute to get some protein in your meal. Go ahead and cut this up. I don't like the looks of that little piece, so we're going to throw that in the sink. And this type of dish will keep for about, 3 to 4 days. After about that much time, it's probably about time to just either eat it or get rid of it. But, if you needed to, you could cut the recipe in half just to make less of it. If you're, just cooking for 2 people, you don't have to cook the full recipe. You never have to cook the full recipe of anything, in my opinion. So right now, I'm just going to put this back in here to make a little bit more space on my cutting board. Again, if you don't have any chicken or you want to use the canned chicken, that's a good substitute. Or again, if you had leftover turkey, like if you're making this at Thanksgiving time, that would also be a good substitute for the recipe. So once this is all cut into pieces, I'm really just going to add it back into my pot over there and stir it all together with the whole wheat noodles and the sauteed peppers. And then I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut up some cilantro really quickly before we serve it. Okay. You gotta stop again. Okay, now that our peanut sauce is made, what I'm going to do is add our noodles. So we've got our cooked whole wheat pasta, about 1/2 pound. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in our peanut sauce. Don't waste any noodles, I'll get mad at you. Okay, so we've got every last morsel of noodle. I'm going to add my cooked chicken. Again, I cooked in parchment paper. Add all of that in there. I'm going to toss that together. And then I'm going to add my cooked bell peppers. This is looking really good. Let's see. Let's use a over here. We'll use a little mint. And let me add those peppers in there. I have a little technical difficulty. So peppers are pretty high in water. We didn't use a whole lot of oil to cook these in, and you really don't need to. So I only used, again, about a tablespoon of oil. Okay, so now you've got your noodles and your peanut sauce and your peppers all tossed together. So you see how well that gets nicely coated by the peanut sauce, and the peppers add a really nice color to it. Because otherwise, if you don't have any vegetables in this, then it's just beige. And nobody wants to eat a khaki meal. We want some color in our food. So the last thing I'm going to do before I serve this is add some chopped cilantro and some green onions. So Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of green onion. And this will add some nice flavor and a little bit of freshness to your cooked pasta. And I always use both the white part and the green part of the onion when I use scallions. So we've got those to add, and then the final thing that I'm going to add here is just some fresh cilantro. And cilantro is optional. I know some people don't care for it, but I'm a big cilantro fan, so I'm going to put it in my pasta. And this is called a mezzaluna. Mezzo meaning half, luna meaning moon, so half moon. And this is great to use for either fresh herbs, or you could chop different nuts or something with this. But these are the last two ingredients in your Thai peanut noodle dish, and it adds both color and flavor to the dish. Again, these are both optional, but I think really to make anything a little bit more flavorful, it's nice to add, you know, a fresh herb or, you know, fresh onions or something like that to the dish, just to give it a little bit of contrast. So you've got something cooked and sauteed and hearty, and then you've got something, you know, a little bit fresher to add at the end. And that's it. Okay, so we've got our final dishes here. So I have my Thai peanut noodle with sauteed peppers and chicken, and I have my kale salad with strawberries and a balsamic vinaigrette with onions, feta, and walnuts. And again, I'm Lisa Andrews, registered dietitian, owner of Sound Bites Nutrition. You can find me online, soundbitesnutrition.com, or @NutriGirl on Twitter. Thanks so much.